Hello, thank you for taking the time to learn about important next steps for the Lincoln Metropolitan Planning Organization's 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan, LRTP, a plan establishing priorities for transportation improvements over the next 30 years. The LRTP is informed by public input. In the first phase of outreach, input helped identify the transportation values, issues of concerns, and important trends. This helps the planning team make recommendations about projects and policies the plan should address. There are 3 goals for this presentation. First, you will review a summary of public input received so far. Next, we'll provide an overview of how projects are identified for the LRTP and how they are prioritized. Finally, we'll share insights about transportation project costs. This information will help you complete the Phase 2 public survey about investment trade-offs and priority projects. Let's get started. During Phase 1 outreach, we shared how the LRTP is closely linked to the comprehensive plan and that transportation is an important element of accomplishing the community's vision. We shared information about the 8 transportation goals listed on this screen and asked the public to give their input about the importance of the goals and which ones were most important. These 8 goals satisfy the required federal regulations for funding, and we wanted to gain the community's input on them. The LRTP goals are important because they support how transportation projects are identified and prioritized. After learning about the 8 transportation goals, the public was asked how well they represent the community. A majority of focus group participants believe the goals represent the community well. The majority of people commenting on the public survey suggest the goals represent the community very well. While a few indicated that the goals do not reflect the community today, the LRTP will help organize steps needed to accomplish the goals. Many perspectives and ideas were shared during the first phase of public outreach, and the diversity of input was an important theme to capture. The graphic on the screen was taken from the Phase 1 summary to show how different interest groups prioritized the 8 goals. The averaged inputs of all focus groups and the public survey responses are shared on the right. Each of the 10 focus groups also ranked the goals, and the results make up the remaining 10 columns. The goals that rank the highest priority are shown at the top, and the lowest priority are at the bottom. Find a color goal of interest and track it across the chart to see how differently it was prioritized by the different groups. It is important to know that each goal informs the LRTP, and although some goals received higher priority than others, the LRTP is expected to accomplish all goals because all goals are important to the community. The multimodal transportation network is supported by many programs, projects, and policies that are maintained by the members of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, also known as the MPO. Many of these initiatives are supported in other documents such as the Transit Development Plan, On-Street Bicycle Plan, and the Traffic Management Plan, which are supported by the LRTP. A comprehensive list was developed of projects that may be required in the next 30 years. The LRTP project identification and prioritization process focused on 3 separate categories: trail projects, City of Lincoln roadway projects, and Lancaster County roadway projects. Development of a comprehensive list of projects required many steps and a subcommittee to complete. The first step included removing the completed projects in the 2040 LRTP. The remaining projects were reviewed to update commitments of funding from federal, state, and local sources. The Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Department and Lincoln Transportation and Utilities organized new projects that are developer-driven or that are to be funded through Lincoln on the Move, which included 50 projects anticipated to be completed by 2025. During the first phase of public outreach, project ideas were added to a web map. Each of these recommendations was considered, and new project ideas were added to the list. An assessment of corridors that are expected to become congested was also completed with the travel demand model. New projects that would address these corridors were also added to the list. Finally, the The list of roadway projects was bundled with adjacent trail projects, on-street bike projects, and sidewalk projects to support the multimodal transportation needs in an efficient and flexible manner. This process led to the 2050 LRTP project list for prioritization. Once the comprehensive list of projects was created, the next step was to begin evaluating the project priorities. It is important that the LRTP direct the highest priority projects to be completed sooner while other projects can wait. Software is used to calculate the weighted scores for each project based on the goals they support. Project that supports many goals very well are ranked higher than projects that do not. And the new transportation equity goal is included in this calculation, which will help drive transportation investments toward projects that create equitable outcomes. This data-driven process allows the Lincoln MPO to ensure transportation funding maximizes the overall benefit to the community. The Project Oversight Planning Committee represents the Lincoln NPO and reviewed public input about the goals. The recommended goal weights were added to the recommended weights from the Plan Forward 2050 Community Committee, and averages of these committee scores determine the relative weights of each goal. The weights were separated for roadway capital improvement projects to reflect the different priorities in the urban versus rural context. The two committees also assigned a score for projects that will receive community support. Because roadway projects are heavily supported by available data, a project may receive up to 5 community input points in the overall prioritization process. Trail projects are also important, have less available data compared to the roadway projects, and are more heavily funded by private contributions. As a result, a trail project may receive up to 10 community points in the overall prioritization process. The roadway projects are distributed throughout Lincoln and Lancaster County. A map and project list is available for review on the project website. A total of 120 City of Lincoln projects have been identified that would exceed $1.3 billion to complete if funds were available in 2022. 80 projects were identified in Lancaster County that would exceed $140 million to complete if funds were available. Projects that have committed funds but are not complete are included on this list. They represent projects that will be completed in the short term of the fiscally constrained plan. Because annual funding is limited, prioritizing Lincoln and Lancaster County projects is critical to supporting growth anticipated to occur within our region. There are many project types included in the roadway project categories for Lincoln and Lancaster counties, including construction of new lanes on existing paved roadways, constructing intersection improvement with turn lanes or roundabouts that improve operations, reconstruction of roadways that are in such poor condition that surface maintenance is not possible, repair and replacement of bridges that have exceeded their useful life or do not meet safe standards for various reasons, construction of safety projects including railroad and intersection safety improvements. City, county, and state roadway projects are important investments that help maintain a safe and efficient transportation network that support the goals of the LRTP. 64 trail projects have also been identified throughout the community to prioritize within the LRTP. Public input strongly suggests that trail projects support the region's high quality of life, equitable access, and continued growth in active transportation. New trails, side paths, and grade separation projects are all included in this list. Each project is important and will become part of the larger trail network envisioned for the community. Urban side paths are often associated with roadway improvement projects and can be completed before, with, or after a roadway project is completed. Funding for transportation projects comes from multiple sources shown here. The source of funding typically determines the type of projects that can be constructed. Funding from federal, state, and local sources is necessary to build and maintain the transportation network. Most of the $118 million of roadway funded projected in 2022 is directed to roadway improvements in the city and county. However, several of these funding sources offer flexibility and can be used for a variety of transportation project types. When possible, roadway project funding may be bundled with projects listed in the on-street bike plan, while other projects are funded through specific federal and local sources projected to be $1.3 million in 2022. Transit funding is anticipated to be $14 million, which will continue to fund capital and operational needs similar to recent funding levels. These funding amounts are significant, but are certainly not enough to build every project listed in the LRTP. How far can limited transportation dollars stretch each year? With careful planning and good data-driven decisions, the answer may be as far as possible. To be more specific, though, one thing to remember is projects become more expensive over time as inflation raises the cost of materials and labor. In recent years, construction costs have inflated approximately 5% per year according to recent project bids. Project costs increase at a faster pace than revenue increases, which means without additional funding sources, we'll be able to do less in the future. The plan level per mile cost estimates, shown in green, indicate how far limited funding may go towards completing short-term projects. Projects recommended to be completed in future years will consider the inflation cost and the future year funding available. This LRTP planning process will result in a fiscally constrained transportation plan that organizes projects according to their priority and the funding available between now and 2050. The draft plan will be available for public review during the summer of 2021. Project scores and the community priority points explained in this presentation will determine the order of the priority list, so projects that have the greatest benefit to the LRTP goals will be prioritized to complete first. The fiscally constrained plan will compare anticipated annual funding against the remaining projects to determine how many projects can be completed by 2050. Projects will be organized into short, mid, and long-term categories so they may be adjusted as priorities change in future years. Now that you know more about transportation projects, funding, and costs, you are ready to provide input about these topics. The Phase 2 survey is provided for you to share input about trade-offs and priority projects. A survey reference with the project maps and lists referenced in this presentation is available to download. Think about how you would distribute 100 transportation dollars. Enter amounts you would spend with limited funding available. Next, pick the 5 City of Lincoln roadway projects that you believe are most important to complete. Repeat this on the next screen for the 5 most important Lancaster County roadway projects. Finally, pick the 5 trail projects that are most important to complete. The final screen will ask for information that helps verify survey results and that the results are representative of the community's diversity. Your input will help establish priorities for transportation improvements and inform the selection of projects to be constructed. Please complete the public survey available on the website before April 5th and share this opportunity to provide input with others. Thank you for taking the time to learn about the Lincoln MPO's 2050 LRTP planning process.